You ever lay in a hospital bed, burning with fever on your birthday, and realize the man you thought loved you was blowing out candles somewhere else? With her? That was the night everything in me went still. Not angry, not sad, just done. I didn't scream. I didn't text. I didn't ask when he was coming back. I just watched his childhood friend post a smiling photo of them with a 3-tier cake. The caption, "True love always shows up no matter what." I didn't like the post. I commented, "Wishing you both a lifetime of happiness. I was in the hospital, by the way, 102-degree fever. But don't worry, I understand. She's like a sister, right?" No one liked her post after that, but it didn't matter, because I had already made my decision. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's about what happens when a woman finally stops begging to be chosen and starts choosing herself instead. So if you've ever stayed too long, hoping someone would change, if you've ever made excuses for someone who always had time for everyone else but you, this is your story too. When I first met Tomas, he felt like everything I didn't know I was waiting for. The way he smiled, soft around the edges. The way he listened, really listened, like my words mattered more than anything else in the room. He held doors without thinking, remembered how I liked my coffee, just enough sugar, no cream, and looked at me like I was a secret he'd always known. But even then, there was always Jessica. "She's like a sister to me," he told me early on. "We grew up together. She's had a hard life, you know. I promised I'd always be there for her." The first time he said it, I didn't question it. Everyone has history. Everyone has someone they feel responsible for. I wanted to be understanding, mature, the kind of woman who didn't flinch at female friends. So I made space. I smiled when she called him at midnight. I laughed off the inside jokes I wasn't part of. I ignored the way she touched his arm a second too long, how she sent him photos late at night of her crying face with captions like, "No one understands me but you." I told myself, don't be insecure. He chose you. And every time it stung, I swallowed it whole. Like the time she called crying during our dinner reservation. It was our 6-month anniversary. I'd curled my hair, bought a new dress. He was already fidgety when we sat down, checking his phone, glancing at the door. Then it buzzed, and everything in him shifted. He excused himself, stepped outside, and stayed gone for 30 minutes. When he came back, his face was pale. "Jessica's not doing well. Panic attack. I have to go." He didn't ask. He didn't hesitate. He kissed my forehead like a father apologizing to a child, and left me sitting there, alone with 2 glasses of untouched wine and a cooling plate of food. Later, when I confronted him, his tone was tired. "She's like family, Evelyn. Are you really going to be upset about this?" So I told myself I was strong enough to love a man who had to love someone else too. That love meant patience, understanding, compassion. I chose to stay, again and again. But each time I stayed, a piece of me left. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did and hoped I wouldn't. There was always some reason she needed him. Her car broke down. She had a migraine. She felt lonely on a Wednesday. It never stopped. And I never stopped justifying it. Until the hospital. Until the moment I lay there, flushed with fever, wires in my arm, my body aching and weak, and my birthday fading without a trace. Until I checked Instagram and saw them, smiling my birthday, fever at 102, IV in my arm, my hands shaking as I typed, "Hey, are you coming soon?" He said, "Work emergency. Just a bit more. Hang in there, baby." I hung on. Then I opened Instagram. There he was, holding a cake with Jessica. Her caption said it all. "If he loves you, he'll show up for your birthday." No mention of me. Just a photo of them, smiling, laughing, celebrating, while I lay in a hospital bed alone. When I was finally discharged, the city outside the hospital felt somehow colder, emptier than before. The taxi home seemed to glide through streets that barely remembered my name. I cradled my bag against my chest, replaying Thomas's words in my head, each one a stone I'd swallowed whole. He hadn't called. Not once. Not to check my fever, not to ask if I needed anything, not even to wish me happy birthday in the end. Just a single text, hours later, asking if I was feeling better. I sat in that cab, staring at the grey blur of the city, and realized I didn't care what his excuse would be. Not anymore. The apartment was quiet when I returned, dust motes spinning in the morning light, as if they too were waiting for something that never arrived. My own steps felt foreign on the hardwood, as if I'd become a visitor in my own life. The table was bare. No flowers, no note. In the kitchen, I set down my hospital discharge papers and took in the silence. I thought about calling my mother, about letting the words spill out, but I stopped myself. She'd always liked Tomas. She'd say, "He's under a lot of pressure. Be patient." I'd spent years being patient. I made myself tea. Lemon, not too sweet. I sat by the window, watching people hurry past, feeling invisible in my own skin. The tea tasted like nothing. I picked up my phone out of habit, expecting a flood of messages, apologies, explanations. There was just one from Thomas. "Let me know when you're home. I'll pick up dinner." "No, I'm sorry. No, happy birthday." I set the phone down, finished my tea, and went to shower. Hot water scalded my skin, but I barely felt it. I scrubbed away the last traces of hospital, of illness, of waiting. When I came out, my hair wrapped in a towel, Tomas was there, standing awkwardly in the hallway, holding a plastic bag of groceries. His face was drawn, his smile brittle. "You're back," he said, like he was surprised to find me alive. "I got dinner. Your favorite, lemon fish." I almost laughed. Lemon fish. Jessica's favorite, not mine. But I just nodded and took the bag from him, carrying it to the kitchen. He followed me, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes darting everywhere but at me. "How was the hospital? Did they treat you well?" he asked, as if he was inquiring about the weather, as if my fever was an inconvenience to be managed, not a crisis to be cared about. "Fine," I said, unpacking containers, lining them on the counter. They did their job. I could feel his discomfort settling around us like thick, heavy air. He hovered, searching for something to say, but I offered nothing. "I'm sorry about your birthday," he finally managed. Jessica was having a rough day. I couldn't leave her alone. She gets into these moods, you know." He said it as if it was obvious, as if my pain was secondary to her inconvenience. I didn't look at him. "It's fine," I replied, voice light, almost amused. "A brother taking care of his sister, right? That's what you always say." He winced. I unpacked the last of the food, plated it carefully. He watched as I picked the fish off my plate, setting it to the side. "I thought you loved this," he said, a flash of confusion passing through his eyes. "Jessica loves it," I replied, meeting his gaze at last. I never did. The silence between us was a chasm. I watched him try to bridge it with an awkward smile. A half-hearted offer to pour me wine. I declined, reaching instead for the shrimp, peeling them slowly, methodically, as if their fragile pink shells held some secret to my survival. We ate in silence, each bite a small act of defiance. His phone buzzed halfway through. He glanced at it, face tensing. "It's Jessica," he said, voice tight. "She's not feeling well." He stood, already moving toward the door. "Go," I said, waving him off without looking up. "She's more important." He paused, searching my face for anger, for disappointment, for the old familiar fight. I gave him nothing. Just a gentle smile, as if his betrayal was a minor weather event. "You're not mad?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not at all. Go take care of her. I'll clean up here." I watched him leave, the door closing softly behind him, and felt nothing but relief. For the first time in months, I finished my meal at my own pace, savoring the simple pleasure of eating alone. After dinner, I put away the leftovers, washed the dishes, wiped the counters. I moved through the motions of my life like a ghost, not quite sure what remained of the woman who used to beg for scraps of his affection. Days passed in a fog of half-hearted apologies and overcompensations. Thomas returned each night with small gestures, a bouquet of wilted flowers, takeout from places he thought I liked, a bottle of wine I used to enjoy, before it reminded me of all the anniversaries I spent waiting for him to come home. He offered to cook one evening. I sat at the counter, watching him fumble with the ingredients, burning the onions, overcooking the pasta. He set the plate in front of me with a proud grin. "I made this for you." "Thank you," I said, forcing a smile, taking a single polite bite. It tasted of effort, of guilt, of desperation, not of love. I cleared the table while he retreated to the living room, scrolling mindlessly through his phone, waiting for Jessica's next crisis to pull him away again. One night, I woke to the sound of his voice, soft, almost pleading, from the next room. "Jessica, calm down. I'll be there soon. Just hold on, okay?" I rolled over, pulling the covers tighter, letting the darkness swallow me whole. The next morning, he returned with bags under his eyes and a haggard expression. "She needed me," he offered by way of explanation, as if I'd demanded one. "I know," I said, pouring myself coffee, adding a touch of cream, stirring slowly. "You always do." He flinched, wounded by my indifference. But I had no anger left for him, only the hollow certainty that I was done fighting for a place, in a story, where I'd never be the main character. At work, my friend Lucy cornered me by the water cooler. "You look exhausted," she said, concern etched in every line of her face. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I replied, avoiding her eyes. She wasn't fooled. "He left you alone on your birthday, Ev. That's not love. That's not even friendship." I shrugged, sipping my coffee. "He says Jessica needs him. He says it's complicated." Lucy snorted. "It's only complicated because you let it be. You're allowed to want more, you know." The words landed with unexpected weight. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my own reflection. The woman who looked back at me was older, yes, and tired, but also, strangely, unburdened. The lines around her eyes spoke of long nights spent waiting, of heartbreak endured in silence. But there was something else there now, something sharper, something alive. I washed my face, brushed my hair, and went to bed alone. The apartment felt different, lighter somehow, without the constant thrum of expectation. Tomas texted late. "Home soon, don't wait up." I didn't reply. I fell asleep to the steady rhythm of my own breathing, peaceful for the first time in years. In the morning, he hovered in the doorway, watching me pack my bag for work. "Let me drive you," he offered, a softness in his voice I hadn't heard in months. "It's okay," I said, slipping on my shoes. "I need the walk." "Evelyn," he began, but I cut him off with a gentle wave. "It's fine, Tomas. Really." He watched me go, uncertainty clouding his face. I felt nothing but relief. At the office, Susan called me into her office, the transfer papers spread across her desk. "The Manhattan job is still open," she said, studying me carefully. "If you want it, it's yours." I hesitated, the old fear curling in my stomach. Manhattan felt so far away, so final. But then I thought of Tomas, of Jessica, of the endless loop of apologies and excuses and nights spent alone. "I'll take it," I said, my voice steady. Susan beamed, pressing the papers into my hands. "You're doing the right thing." That evening, Lucy dragged me out for drinks. The bar was loud, the air thick with laughter and possibility. I let myself be pulled into her orbit, dancing, laughing, feeling the weight of my old life slide from my shoulders. When I checked my phone, there were dozens of missed calls from Tomas. I ignored them, ordering another round, sinking deeper into the moment. Later, curled up on Lucy's couch, I scrolled through Instagram, watching Jessica's endless stream of curated happiness. For the first time, I didn't feel jealousy or rage or sorrow. I just felt nothing. The next morning, Tomas's voice was sharp with irritation when I finally called back. "Where were you? I called all night." "Out with Lucy," I replied, yawning. "I was tired. I stayed over." "You could have at least told me," he snapped. I was worried. I nearly laughed. Funny, I used to stay up all night worrying about you. When you were out with Jessica, when you stopped answering my calls, when I sat alone at every holiday, every birthday, every Sunday morning. He was silent for a moment. It's not the same. No, I agreed, it's not. I hung up, tossing the phone onto the bed, and went to make breakfast. He texted again that afternoon. Let me pick you up tonight. Let's have dinner. Just the two of us. I hesitated. The old version of me would have jumped at the offer, eager for any scrap of attention. But now, I felt only obligation, a faint echo of hope, where once there was desperation. Fine, I texted back. When he arrived, Jessica was in the passenger seat, her perfume lingering in the air like a challenge. I hope you don't mind, she said sweetly. I begged Thomas to let me come. I just can't stand being alone tonight. I climbed into the back seat without a word. Thomas watched me in the rearview mirror, searching for a reaction. I gave him none. At dinner, Jessica played her part to perfection. Fragile, charming, just helpless enough to keep Thomas on edge. Don't be upset, Evelyn, she cooed, cutting her steak delicately. Thomas just knows how to take care of me. It's always been that way. I smiled, sipping my wine. I'm not upset. You two look good together. Thomas shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. Evelyn, you know it's not like that. Of course, I replied. It's just a sibling bond. Jessica's eyes flashed just for a moment, and I realized she knew. She knew exactly what she was doing, and so did he. But I was done playing along. I excused myself early, taking a cab home, leaving them behind in the restaurant's golden glow. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something inside me harden. I didn't want to fight anymore. Didn't want to beg or plead or make myself small. I wanted out. The next days blurred together. Packing boxes, wrapping up work, making arrangements for Manhattan. Thomas hovered, desperate to fix what he'd broken. He brought flowers, cooked dinners, offered apologies rehearsed so many times they sounded hollow. Let's start over, he pleaded one night, his hands shaking. I'll do better, I promise. I'll keep Jessica out of it. Just give me another chance. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the fear in his eyes, the knowledge that he'd already lost me. Some things, I said softly, can't be fixed. Not with dinners, not with promises, not anymore. He wept then, a raw, broken sound. I comforted him as best I could, not out of love, but out of kindness. I knew what it was to grieve a loss you brought on yourself. My last night in the apartment, I cooked us dinner. Pasta, simple, nothing fancy. He watched me from the doorway, silent, haunted. Will you call me when you get to Manhattan? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, tucking a stray hair behind my ear. Maybe, maybe not. I served the food, poured 2 glasses of wine, and we ate in silence. I felt light, unburdened, almost happy. When dinner was done, I stood, gathered my things, and turned to him one last time. Goodbye, Thomas, I said, and walked out the door. In the hallway, I paused, listening for the sound of his footsteps, of his voice calling me back, but there was only silence. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the lobby, and exhaled. I was free. Moving to Manhattan always sounded like something someone else would do, not the girl who played safe, who measured happiness in teaspoons of maybe next year, who built her life around a man's convenience and convinced herself that love meant staying, no matter how many times she was left waiting. But as the days blurred into cardboard boxes and train tickets, I started to feel the scaffolding of my old life crack and break away. There was relief in the noise of packing tape, in the sharp scent of a new suitcase. There was peace in the certainty that I was leaving, not running. I wasn't angry with Thomas anymore. Anger was a tether, and I'd let go. He didn't understand it. Every morning, he grew more restless, more desperate, trying to fit into the shape of the man he thought I wanted. Flowers on the pillow, coffee just the way I liked it, questions about my day that landed too late, after the answers had already faded. One morning, I caught him studying my face in the bathroom mirror, like he was trying to find the switch to turn me back on. "You're quiet lately," he said, his voice cautious, almost shy. "Am I?" I asked, smoothing moisturizer across my cheekbones, watching his reflection waver behind me. "You don't fight anymore. I thought you'd want to talk things through." "I'm tired of talking, Thomas." The admission was gentle, not cruel. "I spent years talking, years explaining, pleading, hoping. I'm tired, that's all." He turned away, shoulders slumped, a boy in a man's clothing. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The day his mother called was rainy, the sky smudged grey above the city. "We'd love to have you both for dinner," Anna said, her voice warm and insistent. "It's been too long, Evelyn." I hesitated, phone pressed to my ear. "Of course, Anna. I'll be there." Thomas was delighted, genuinely delighted, as if he believed this dinner might fix something irrevocable. That evening I dressed with care. Not for Thomas, not for his parents, but for myself. A deep blue dress, soft against my skin, hair pinned up the way I liked. When we arrived, his parents greeted me with open arms. Their affection, as effortless as Thomas's, had always been complicated. Over dinner, his mother beamed, passing me her famous lemon tart, insisting on seconds, asking about my job. "We've missed you," Anna said, pressing my hand. "Your family, you know." Her words landed like petals and stones at once. His father joined in, nudging Thomas, winking. "So, when's the wedding? You kids have made us wait long enough." The room fell silent. I looked at Thomas, who smiled, a nervous, forced thing. "Soon, Dad. We're getting engaged next month." I felt the weight of his mother's old necklace, still warm against my skin. "Congratulations," Anna cried, hugging me, fastening the clasp more tightly. My breath caught in my throat. How easy it was, I thought, to play pretend. How simple to act as if everything had always been right. I smiled politely, said thank you, let them dream. But the moment hung heavy in the air, and I realized this wasn't my family. Not really. I didn't belong to these hopes, these stories. Not anymore. On the drive home, Thomas was quieter than usual. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles shone white in the city lights. "Thank you for coming," he said softly, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. It meant a lot to them, to me. I watched the city slide by outside my window, rain streaking neon reflections down the glass. "You're welcome," I said, folding my hands in my lap. He pulled up outside our building and turned off the engine but didn't move. The silence pressed in. "Evelyn, do you remember when we first met?" His voice was shaky, uncertain. "You were wearing that yellow dress. You spilled coffee on me." "I remember. I thought I was the luckiest man in the world." I smiled, but the memory didn't hurt. "You were, for a while." He flinched as if struck, but I was gentle. No bitterness, no venom. Just fact. Can we start again?" he asked, his voice almost breaking. "Move to Manhattan with you. Make it work." I shook my head slowly. "That's not how it works, Thomas. I need to go alone. I need to learn who I am when I'm not waiting for you to come home." The next day, we attended our college reunion. Jessica was there, of course, a storm in silk and diamonds, clinging to Thomas as if her life depended on it. She made a show of it, whispering in his ear, laughing too loudly, flashing her ring. I watched from across the room, wine glass balanced in my hand, and felt nothing but distant amusement. Our old friends circled us, curious, waiting for the drama to unfold. "So, when's the wedding?" someone asked, grinning. Thomas squeezed my hand, hard. "Next month. We're finally doing it." Jessica's eyes narrowed. She excused herself, then appeared moments later, clinging to Thomas's arm. "Thomas, I want a cupcake. Get it for me?" He hesitated, glanced at me. I nodded, waved him off, then turned to Lucy, who'd sidled up beside me. "You good?" she whispered. "Never better," I replied, taking a slow sip of wine. The music swelled, Laughter bounced off the walls, and in the middle of it all, I felt a strange, wild freedom. On the way home, Tomas dropped Jessica off first. She lingered at the car window, her voice honeyed. "Tomas, call me if you need anything, okay? Anything at all." He mumbled a reply, barely meeting her eyes. When we reached our building, he turned to me, panic and hope warring in his gaze. "When did you decide to move?" he asked, voice sharp with disbelief. "Last month," I said, calm, honest. "Why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything?" He fell silent, eyes shining with unshed tears. "We should break up, Tomas," I said quietly. "This isn't working for either of us." The words hung in the air, sharp and clean. He grabbed my hand, desperate, tears running down his face. "Don't go. Please, Evelyn, I'll fix it. I'll delete her number. I'll do anything." He fumbled with his phone, showing me as he deleted Jessica's contact, hands shaking. "See? Gone. Please." I withdrew my hand gently. "It's too late. Some things can't be fixed by erasing numbers. You always knew what Jessica was doing. And you let her." He shook with grief, clutching at my arm. "Stay. Just one more chance." I reached for the necklace Anna had given me, unclasped it, and placed it in his palm. "Tell your mother thank you. She's wonderful, but this doesn't belong to me." His hands trembled as he gripped the necklace. "I wish you happiness, Tomas," I whispered, my voice steadier than I expected. He started to speak, but I turned away, walking out into the hall, the elevator, the night. Each step was heavy at first, then lighter. By the time the doors slid shut behind me, my heart felt almost weightless. That night, the city was alive, glittering with possibility. I wandered the streets, phone silent in my pocket, the noise and energy wrapping around me like a promise. In a small cafe, I ordered tea, sat by the window, and wrote a letter to myself. "You are enough," I wrote. "You are allowed to want more. You do not have to wait to be chosen." When I returned to the apartment for the last time, Tomas was gone. I packed the final box, turned out the lights, and closed the door behind me. The hallway was silent, the elevator humming softly. On the street, I hailed a cab, gave the driver an address in Manhattan, and watched as my old life disappeared in the rearview mirror. No anger, no tears, just freedom. I didn't expect to see Tomas again before I left, but when I returned to the apartment to collect my last suitcase, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, the room dim except for a slant of evening light across the counter. His hands were folded, eyes red, coffee cup untouched before him. The silence was thick, weighted with everything unsaid, everything that had built and broken and scarred between us. He looked up, his face almost unfamiliar in its nakedness. "You're really leaving," he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, setting my bag down gently. "I am." He exhaled, a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You were always stronger than me. I just didn't want to see it." I moved to the window, looking out at the city, its lights flickering alive beneath a sky that threatened rain. I wasn't strong, Tomas. I was afraid. I thought if I stayed patient, if I loved hard enough, you'd finally see me. But all I did was make myself small. He rose, moving toward me, cautious as if I might shatter. "You're not small. I see you now. I wish I could take it all back. Every time I left you waiting. Every time I called it love but didn't choose you." I looked at him, not with anger, but with the calm clarity that had come in these final days. "You chose her, over and over. Maybe not with words, but in every small moment. You didn't want to hurt me, but you didn't want to lose her either. In the end, you lost us both." He flinched, tears slipping down his face. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked, the city murmured outside, the hush of ending settled between us. "Evelyn, do you remember that summer in Montauk?" he asked suddenly, voice cracking. "We drank cheap wine on the beach and you told me all your dreams. I thought, God, I really thought I'd spend my life making you happy." The memory drifted back, bittersweet. "I wanted that too. I said softly. But happiness isn't something you can give someone if you haven't chosen them with your whole heart. He covered his face, shoulders shaking. I'm sorry. For all of it. There was a time those words would have broken me open. Now, they landed softly, a breeze that rustles curtains but doesn't touch the soul. I sat down across from him, folding my hands. I forgive you, Tomas. Truly. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It just means I don't want to carry this pain into what comes next. He reached out, fingers trembling, and for a heartbeat, I thought he'd ask me to stay. Instead, he just squeezed my hand and let go. The apartment seemed to breathe a long sigh as I stood, picking up my suitcase, glancing once more around the space that had held so many beginnings and endings. Take care of yourself, I said at the door. Find someone who makes you want to be present, not someone who waits for you to show up. He nodded, voice gone. I hope you find someone too. I smiled, a real smile, one that felt like sunlight after rain. Maybe I already have, I whispered, pressing a hand to my own heart. The elevator ride down was slow, the lights flickering overhead, my reflection fractured in the steel doors. For the first time in years, I felt no urge to check my phone, no anxious need to see if he'd messaged, no sting of waiting for someone else's life to begin. Outside, Manhattan's energy was different, faster, hungrier, almost impatient. I hailed a cab, and as we crossed the bridge, the skyline stretching endless and wild, I let myself remember everything. The years of holidays alone, the cold plates on the table, the laughter from the other room that was never for me. I remembered too the good days, sunlight on sheets, whispered promises, the sense that for a brief moment I'd been loved without conditions. But mostly, I remembered the nights I waited, and the morning I woke up and realized I never would again. In the back seat of that cab, watching the city unfold, I allowed the ache to surface. Sharp, not unbearable, almost clean. I grieved what could have been, what wasn't, what I'd tried so hard to salvage. When I arrived at my new apartment, boxes stacked like dominoes in the hallway, I paused at the threshold. No memories yet here, just possibility. I set down my suitcase, walked to the window, and let the city's noise and promise seep into me. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone to come home. I was already home, just as I was, entire and unfinished and free. That night, Lucy called, her laughter a balm through the phone. How does it feel, city girl? She teased, scared, excited, mostly light, I admitted. She was quiet for a moment, then, You did the hardest thing, Ev. You stopped asking to be chosen. I closed my eyes, a smile tugging at my lips. Yeah, now I get to choose. As I lay in bed, city lights dancing across the ceiling, I wrote in my journal, words spilling easy and sure. Let this be the story I carry forward. Not the story of being left, or of waiting, or of loving someone who couldn't love me back. Let it be the story of how I learned to love myself more than I feared being alone. The story of leaving, yes, but also the story of beginning. Somewhere in the city, Tomas would wake to a quiet apartment, the weight of absence a new thing to carry. Maybe he would change, or maybe he wouldn't. That wasn't mine to hold anymore. For the first time, I was content to let go. In the morning, I brewed coffee just the way I liked it, walked barefoot to the window, and watched the sun rise over a city that owed me nothing and promised everything. I wasn't healed, I wasn't finished, but I was free. If you're listening and you see yourself in my story, I hope you know there's a world beyond waiting, a life on the other side of not being chosen. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk out the door, suitcase in hand, and let the rest of your life begin. And if someone ever asks what happened to you, tell them this. I stopped waiting for love and chose myself instead. The first weeks in Manhattan passed like a blur, a mosaic of cardboard boxes, new street names, coffee shops thick with strangers, and sunlight filtering through unfamiliar windows. There was a hush in the mornings, a hush that wasn't waiting for a door to open or a voice to call my name, just quiet, mine alone. I walked everywhere, letting the city's noise drown out the old refrains in my head, letting new habits settle in. The way I took my coffee, the bakery with the warmest bread, the bookstore where no one knew me. There were moments when loneliness curled its fingers around my ribs. A scent, a song, a couple laughing in line behind me. And for an instant, I missed not Thomas himself, but the comfort of a life built for two, even if it had been empty most of the time. I let the feeling crest and recede, refusing to be pulled under. Some nights, Lucy would call and we'd talk about everything and nothing, our voices threading through the city's electric dusk. "It's all forward now," she'd say, and I'd believe her. I was learning to belong to myself again. I took the subway to work each morning, my reflection flickering in the glass, pale and determined, the city blurring past behind me. My new colleagues welcomed me, unaware of the story I carried in the set of my shoulders or the tired way I sometimes smiled. In meetings, I caught myself thinking, this is my life. No one else's. I don't have to shrink here. My desk filled up with little signs of ownership, succulent in a blue pot, postcards from Lucy, a mug with a chipped rim that made me smile. In small ways, I was growing new roots. One Saturday, walking home from the market with a bag of tangerines and fresh bread, I ducked into a tiny park. The city pressed close around it, skyscrapers hemming in a patch of quiet green. I sat on a bench, peeled a tangerine, let the sun warm my face. A deep breath, a small, ordinary peace. I heard my name, tentative, unsure. "Evelyn?" The voice froze me, recognizable even after months, after everything. I turned and saw Thomas, standing a few steps away, older, thinner, wearing a coat that seemed too heavy for spring. For a moment, we just stared at each other, city noise ebbing into silence. He stepped forward, uncertainty all over him. "I thought it was you. I hoped maybe I'd see you here someday. I moved, got a job in the city. I thought, maybe, never mind." My heart hammered, old memories rising and falling in the space between us. I smiled, gentle, curious, not the old ache, but not quite empty either. "You look good, Thomas." He let out a breath, his hands wringing together. "You look free." For a long time, neither of us spoke. Birds trilled in the branches overhead. A child's laughter floated from the swings. He sat down at the other end of the bench, giving me space. "I'm in therapy now," he said, voice low. "I'm trying to understand how I let everything slip away." I nodded, unafraid. "That's good. I'm glad." He looked away, struggling. "I wanted to say thank you for letting me go, for being the one who was brave enough to leave." I watched him, seeing not the man who broke my heart, but someone still searching for himself. "I didn't feel brave," I admitted. "I just finally believed I deserved more." He winced, pain flickering across his face. "You did. I just didn't know how to give it." We sat in silence, sunlight shifting over our laps. "Are you happy?" he asked at last, the question naked. I smiled, tasting the tangerine's sweet sharpness on my tongue. "I'm learning how. Most days, yes." He closed his eyes, relief and regret tangled together. "I hope you meet someone who—" I stopped him with a wave, kind but final. "I'm not looking. I think, for now, I want to know what it means to belong to myself." He nodded, understanding. "You're different. So are you." He stood, lingering a moment longer. "If you ever want to talk—" I shook my head, not unkind. "I wish you well, Thomas." He smiled, sad and honest, and walked away into the sunlit city, shoulders squaring as he disappeared. After he left, I stayed on that bench a long while, letting the encounter settle into my bones. The strange thing was, I didn't cry. There was no ache, no hunger to rewind the past, no wish that he'd begged me to stay. Only a gentle gratitude for the ending, and a stronger one for the new life I'd built. I watched the world move around me, children chasing pigeons, an old couple sharing a sandwich, a woman reading quietly under a maple tree. I realized that the city was full of stories like mine, unfinished, uncertain, but alive. In the weeks that followed, I found myself reaching for new things: a cooking class, late-night walks through the city's restless heart, spontaneous coffee with a neighbor who made me laugh until my sides ached. I met people who didn't know me as the girl who waited, who saw me only as I was, curious, open, unbroken. I filled my apartment with music and books, learned the gentle rhythm of living alone, the softness of coming home to myself. Some nights, I'd write in my journal by the window, city lights winking in the distance. Let this be a record of hope. Let it be proof that you can survive what you thought would break you, that someday the waiting ends. Not because someone finally arrives, but because you finally walk out to meet the dawn on your own. One rainy evening, Lucy visited, bringing wine and stories. We sat on the floor, laughter echoing through the little apartment. "You're glowing, Ev," she said, topping off my glass. "You did it. You made a whole new life." I grinned, feeling it down to my bones. We both did. Later, alone again, I stood at the window, rain streaking the glass, the city humming with promise. I thought of the girl I'd been, all hope and apology, all longing and patience, and sent her a silent wish. Thank you for not giving up, even when it hurt. Thank you for choosing the door instead of the waiting room. Thank you for being brave enough to start over. I still had lonely days, moments when the past tugged at me, when I missed the idea of being loved more than any real person. But I no longer confused loneliness with emptiness. There was space in my life now, space for growth, for newness, for a different kind of happiness. In time, I'd date again, maybe fall in love again, but for now, I relished the quiet certainty of waking each day and knowing I was enough. No more shrinking, no more waiting at windows. My story, this story, wasn't about being left behind or even about being found. It was about choosing myself every day until choosing myself felt like coming home. And if anyone asked, I would say this: I didn't just survive being left behind. I flourished, not in spite of it, but because of it. And there is a whole, wild world waiting on the other side of goodbye.